Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk with you about indie books, in particular some that I've read over the last years that I think deserve more hype. Why specifically indie books? Well, I think they are not chained to the market demands trade publishers are. Indie authors can get a lot more creative with the ideas that they have. They can include their own experiences. They are simply great. I'm a big lover of independent published books. Doesn't mean I hate trade published. By no means. There are some great trade published books as well. But I think it is worth calling out some gems in the indie world. There's just so much good stuff out there, and finding the ones that satisfy your hunger for a good book can be challenging sometimes, but that's why we make those videos. And I picked books that I've already read over the last years, so I went into Goodreads and I looked up all the books that have an average rating of 4 or more. My focus was it has to be a published book, it has to be indie published or by a small press, it has to be a standalone or the first in a series, and it has to have less than 50 reviews on Goodreads. All right, let's get started with a few honorable mentions. I have 5 of those, and then I go into the 10 highest rated books that I've read over the last years. But as an honorable mention, I want to highlight a graphic novel, which is Hex 11. They have 2 volumes, which I believe have 3 issues each in the volumes. This is kind of more a cyberpunk noirish graphic novel with witches and a really cool magic system. Hex 11 currently stands at, the first volume at least, stands at a 4.05 rating with 30 reviews. Macro Shadow is another, this is more a YA sci-fi, young girl against big corporation, reluctant hero. If you like these keywords, this is a fun and quirky read. Also very cool robot companion. Mercury Shadow currently stands at a 4.06 rating with 22 reviews. Next up, Darktown by Palmer Pickering, which sits at a 4.07 rating with 31 reviews. Book 2 is coming out very, very soon, and I'm so excited. This is a lit RPG adventure, a bit more slow-paced, but has red terrier representation, which for me is super important. And I loved it. I'm hoping we're getting a bit more in book 2. Next up is Hammer and Crucible, has a 4.22 rating, and it's an honorable mention because it already has 51 reviews. So it technically doesn't fit my criteria anymore, but I wanted to give it a shout. It's a fantastic space opera with a lot of great characters, a lot of snarky humor. And then the last one that I want to highlight as an honorable mention is Not So Silent Nights, with 0 reviews currently at a 4.57 rating, which is technically not a novel, but 3 novellas, each about 100 pages. This is more in the romantasy section because they are all love stories, but they are written incredibly well, so entertaining, a bit more on the Christmassy winter theme, but I mean, you can read that at any time while you're eating ice cream. Who cares? Let's jump into my top 10 list of indie books with less than 50 reviews that I want to highlight in this video. Starting off with Salt in the Wound by Benjamin Averin, which sits at 4.15 with exactly 50 reviews at the point of filming this. This is a Finnish trilogy with an Arthurian-inspired cast. Technically, it's a dystopian sci-fi, but honestly, you don't really see that while you're reading through it. It's very much a fantasy setting, more medieval-inspired, set in Old England, well, future England, with a lot of very unique items from the characters, from the monsters, from the magic system, a lot of cool stuff. If you want to dive deeper, I've made a review on the series that starts with Salt in the Wound, so go check that out. Book number 2 is Dead Rockster by Lila Lawson. This is the Dead Rockster trilogy that just finished out in the last year, I believe. I haven't written book 3 yet, but I've read book 1 and 2 in that series. This is an urban fantasy where a woman that lives in a trailer park, she is snarky and very funny, accidentally reanimates a dead singer who is now a zombie. and is searching her out, and they have to figure things out together. It is a lot of fun. It is very quirky, very great writing. Dead Rockstar sits at a 4.17 with 24 reviews. Number 3 is Lottery to Haven, which sits at a 4.3 rating with 3 reviews. This is a really cool dystopian sci-fi where it is about a world that is, on the brink of collapse. It really sucks living here, and all the rich people are fleeing from Earth. And in order to get some of the not so rich people safely away from Earth as well, they're conducting a lottery. So other people can join that and then also join space. So sounds really, really good, but there's a lot to it. I loved the twist to it. I loved figuring out what that lottery really is. And it's such a cool book to read. Just as a side note, the writing is a bit quirkier. It feels a bit more neutral and to the point, but I actually really liked it, knowing that, especially in sci-fi, you have a lot of more idea-based authors. Lottery to Haven kind of falls into that same category. The next book is Godfrey's Crusade, which sits at 4.27 with 28 reviews. First off, this has a fantastic audiobook. I listened to that as an audiobook, and it was such an engaging read. I could do nothing else but stare at the wall and just listen to it and be completely immersed in the story. This is a more medieval, Western-inspired story with some plot elements that remind you of actual history. It's about a young boy, Godfrey, who is planning his first crusade, and all the stuff that is happening there has some magical elements, has some religious elements. It is a more traditional fantasy in that sense, but very well written and very entertaining audiobook. Next up is Rebekite by Ora Lear, which sits at 4.32 with 45 reviews. This is a near-future sci-fi in which an asteroid hit the moon, and now the dust particles from the moon and from that asteroid are falling down on Earth. And we're following a young woman who works at a science institution that handles the observation of that kind of moon dust. This is a duology that is also finished already. Very fast-paced, has some thriller elements, has some really cool twisty conspiracy theory elements, and also fantastic writing, very engaging character, and yeah, I loved it. Next up is The Magical Circle, which sits at 4.38 with 18 reviews. This is probably one of the most diverse books that I've read. Sci-fi cities are kind of covered by domes because there was some nuclear thing happening. It has been a while. I don't know the exact details anymore, but it was some nuclear stuff. So air is not safe and cities are in bubbles. You have an incredibly diverse character, from LGBTQ representation, disability representation, all those kind of things, with a military element. It is a sci-fi, but it has like supernatural abilities with the characters, magic kind of element, which makes it really, really cool. It definitely takes you on a journey. That is one of those examples where I say that author definitely included a lot of ideas into this book, and he goes into a lot of direction with it. It's kind of hard to put it into a box because I don't think that's what the author wanted. They wanted on purpose that, it is kind of a mishmash of themes and things. Next up is Hands Like Secrets, which sits at a 4.42 rating with 7 reviews. This is going to be, I believe, 4 or 5 books, if I'm not entirely mistaken, and I believe only 2 are out by the time of filming this. I've only read the first book so far. This is a fantasy story with a chosen one element, enemies to lovers, maybe, I'm not sure, element. Autism representation, lovable characters, really cool magic system, in political intrigue, deception, people are more than you think, school setting. This has a lot of juicy elements that you can sink your teeth into. And now that I'm saying this, I actually have to reread because I want to know what happens in book 2. It has been way too long. All right, let's get to the last 3 books on my list, the ones with the highest rating ratings on Goodreads, starting with A Journey Thrice Begotten. By the time of filming this, I didn't have the interview with the author yet, but by the time you're watching this interview is already out, so go check out the interview on my channel with the author, where we talk about the book, of course, and probably a bunch of other things. But this is, again, a great example of why indie books are so important, because the author put together some really cool ideas and came up with an incredibly unique story, something that I have not read in the fantasy realm before. So this book is about young Everett, who just wants to live a normal life, not seen by anyone, quiet and calm, and just survive the engagement ceremony that is about to happen in his little village. A lot of great themes, from reluctant hero, unique characters, really cool magic system, magical school. There's a little bit of romance in there. There's a really cool game aspect in there. It's everything that you want an exciting fantasy story to be. It is also very dark, just FYI, which surprised me a little bit when I was reading it, because the tone at the beginning of the book does not quite match the darkness we will get later in the book. But you know what? You are in for a wild ride. This one currently sits at 4.73 with 31 ratings. On to the next book, which is Nomad's Crucible, sits at a rating at 4.75 with only 2 reviews. This is another one of those super unique indie published books, which technically is sci-fi but has a lot of fantasy elements in it. If you love Star Wars, you should definitely check out this book, because there are some like Star Wars like elements in there. But this is about a nomad who takes on odd jobs. He's kind of an assassin for hire, and he is one of those people who just takes the jobs, takes the money, and never thinks about it again. By the way, I would love to have that and not have my brain think about what I said 5 years ago to that one person that I have never talked to since. He is very, very much settled in his way, but there's more to him than meets the eye. And with the last job that he is accepting, he actually comes out of his shell and is wondering, something is off here with this job. Something is off with the people who hired me to do this. Something is off in general here. And you're following him along as he is trying to figure out what's happening. Fast-paced, lots of cool sci-fi elements in the book. Again, great story. Standalone, highly recommend. And then the book that has the highest rating on my list is Origins, which has a 4.76 rating with 13 reviews so far. Origins is a bit shorter YA fantasy with shape-shifting dragons and vampires. I mean, if that doesn't say anything already, and you're not already checking on Amazon on, okay, tell me more about this book. It is very wholesome, and it has themes of overcoming a preset mindset, and it's handled in an actually really wholesome way. And I liked how the story was told. Fast-paced, lots of good stuff crammed into the 150 pages. And yeah, I'm hoping that the author writes more in this world, because it was just a lot of fun. Don't forget to check out bookshop.org as well if you're looking for indie published books, not just Amazon, not just Barnes & Nobles, but now bookshop.org also sells ebooks also from indie published authors. So if you want to get away from those big corporations, this is a great opportunity to not just support indie authors, but also indie bookstores. Just a hot tip on the side. Now it's your turn. Recommend your indie book that you believe deserves more hype, deserves more readers. Let us know down in the comments what your recommendation would be. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this list. Maybe found a new recommendation that you want to go check out. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and that I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye!